Purpose is not something that suddenly appears one day, like a moment of clarity that changes everything. It doesn't arrive in a flash. It doesn't come from a single realization, and it doesn't reveal itself just because you've thought about life long enough. Purpose is quieter than that. It is built in the background of your life, in the routines you repeat, in the standards you keep when no one is watching, in the way you live ordinary days, long before anything feels meaningful. Many people assume that a meaningful life starts with understanding, with clarity, with finally knowing who they are and what they were meant to do. But meaning doesn't begin with answers. It begins with actions. Purpose is not a feeling you wait for. It is a structure you commit to. And that empty or restless feeling people describe isn't proof that something is wrong with them. It's often proof that nothing solid has been built yet. No rhythm, no discipline, no daily direction. A life without structure will always feel unclear. Not because purpose is missing, but because it hasn't been constructed. This audiobook isn't about helping you discover your purpose. It's about showing you how purpose is formed, slowly, patiently, through daily behavior. Because purpose doesn't come first. Practice does. What you do each day is quietly shaping who you are becoming. Long before you feel confident, long before you feel inspired, long before anything feels significant. The mistake is waiting for meaning before acting. Waiting to feel ready, waiting for certainty. But readiness is not the starting point. Consistency is. Purpose grows out of repetition, out of discipline, out of choosing to show up even when nothing feels special yet. And that's the part almost no one talks about. A meaningful life doesn't feel meaningful at the beginning. It feels repetitive. It feels uneventful. Sometimes it feels boring. But boredom is often the doorway to depth. When you stop chasing intensity and start committing to direction, something changes beneath the surface. Trust begins to form. Identity starts to stabilize. Confidence grows quietly. Not the loud kind of confidence, the grounded kind. The kind that comes from keeping promises to yourself. Purpose is not something you stumble into by accident. It is something you earn through alignment. Alignment between what you say matters and what you actually do. Between your values and your schedule. Between your intentions and your behavior. When those things are out of sync, life feels empty. When they begin to match, meaning slowly takes shape. This process doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't need to. A tree doesn't rush its roots. A foundation isn't impressive while it's being built. But without it, nothing stands. In the next 60 minutes, you're not going to be given a grand mission or a dramatic calling. You're going to be given something far more practical, a way to live that creates meaning over time. A way to build purpose through daily discipline. A way to stop waiting for clarity and start generating it. You'll learn why purpose is not found in emotion, but in commitment. Why identity must come before direction. Why ordinary days are more powerful than extraordinary moments. And why acting with purpose comes long before feeling it. This is not about motivation. Motivation fades. This is about structure. Structure stays. By the end of this audiobook, you won't feel suddenly inspired, but you will feel grounded, clearer, more stable. And that's where real purpose begins. Not in excitement, not in certainty, but in the quiet decision to live deliberately, one day at a time. Purpose is not waiting for you somewhere in the future. It's being shaped by what you do today. Let's begin building it. Chapter 1. Purpose is not missing. It's unbuilt. There was a man who came home every evening feeling strangely tired. Not physically tired, mentally empty. His days were full, meetings, messages, tasks, noise. But when everything stopped at night, there was nothing solid underneath it all. No sense of direction, no feeling that the day had moved his life forward. He kept asking the same question in different forms. What am I doing this for? Why does none of this feel meaningful? He assumed the problem was purpose, that he hadn't found it yet. But the real problem wasn't meaning, it was structure. His days had no shape, no clear beginning, no clear end, no standard for what mattered and what didn't. So everything felt equally heavy and equally empty. Purpose doesn't disappear in lives like that. It never gets the chance to exist. Meaning needs a frame. Without one, life becomes a series of reactions instead of a direction. Purpose is not something you lose. It is something you fail to build. A day without structure trains your mind to drift. A week without intention teaches your nervous system to stay restless. And over time, that restlessness turns into the belief that something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong. What's missing is a foundation. Purpose doesn't come from asking big questions. It comes from living small answers consistently. When actions are scattered, meaning feels scattered. When commitments are vague, purpose feels vague. When nothing repeats with intention, nothing feels rooted. This is why reflection alone never solves the problem. You can read, you can think, and you can analyze your past and imagine your future. But if your days stay unstructured, clarity never arrives. Purpose answers discipline, not curiosity. Another story makes this clearer. A woman once described her life as floating. She wasn't unhappy, she wasn't depressed. She just felt detached from her own life. Her schedule changed every day. Her priorities shifted with her mood. Nothing was consistent long enough to grow roots. She wanted to feel aligned, but alignment requires repetition. So she didn't search for purpose. She chose one small structure, same wake-up time, one focused hour each morning, one task she finished daily, no matter how small. Nothing dramatic happened at first, but after a few weeks, something changed quietly. Her thoughts slowed down, her confidence stabilized, her sense of direction sharpened. Not because she discovered her purpose, but because she finally gave it something to stand on. Purpose forms where life becomes intentional. It grows where days stop being accidental. This is the part that's uncomfortable to hear. If your life feels meaningless, look at your routines before you question your identity. Look at what repeats. Look at what never gets finished. Look at where your attention goes when nothing is demanding it. Purpose is already responding to those patterns. Every day you live without structure trains your mind to feel uncertain. Every day you live with structure trains your mind to feel grounded. Meaning follows the training. Purpose is not a mystery to be solved. It is a result to be earned. And it begins the moment your days stop drifting. You don't need a revelation. You need a rhythm. Once structure exists, purpose stops feeling distant. Not all at once, but steadily, quietly. That is how it always starts. Chapter 2. Discipline comes before meaning. There is a common misunderstanding about discipline. It is often seen as something you use once you already know where you are going. As if discipline is a tool you apply after purpose becomes clear. In reality, it works the other way around. Discipline is not the result of meaning. It is the condition that allows meaning to form. A man once described how his life felt like it was constantly restarting. Every few weeks, he would feel a surge of motivation. He would reorganize his schedule, set new goals, promise himself this time would be different. For a short while, it was. Then the motivation faded. Not because he was lazy, not because he didn't care, but because nothing in his life required him to continue once the feeling disappeared. When discipline depends on emotion, it collapses the moment emotion changes. He wasn't lacking ambition. He was lacking something far more basic, a system that didn't need his enthusiasm. Purpose cannot grow in an environment that changes every time your mood does. Discipline is not intensity, it is reliability. And reliability is boring. It looks like doing the same thing on days when nothing feels special. It looks like following through without excitement. It looks like repetition without reward. That is why discipline is so often avoided. It removes the drama, but drama is not what creates meaning. Stability is. Another story illustrates this clearly. A woman decided she wanted her life to feel more meaningful. She didn't change careers. She didn't move cities. She didn't search for a passion. She did something far less impressive. She chose one simple habit. Every morning, before checking her phone, she would sit at her desk for 30 minutes and work on a single task she had chosen the night before. That was it. No inspiration required. No emotional check-in. No adjustment based on how she felt. Some mornings she was focused. Some mornings she was distracted. Some mornings she felt resistance the entire time. But she stayed. At first, nothing changed internally. She didn't feel more purposeful. She didn't feel inspired. What changed was her relationship with herself. She began to trust her own word. That trust altered something deeper than motivation ever could. Discipline creates self-trust. Self-trust creates stability, and stability is where meaning begins to take shape. Without discipline, your inner life becomes chaotic, and thoughts pull you in different directions. Emotions dictate decisions. Energy gets wasted reacting instead of building. With discipline, life narrows, not in a restrictive way, but in a grounding one. Fewer decisions, clearer priorities, predictable effort. Purpose does not require freedom from structure. It requires commitment to one. The reason discipline feels heavy at first is because it removes excuses. It leaves you alone with your choices. You either show up or you don't. You either follow through or you break the promise. There is no one else to blame. This is uncomfortable. But it is also clarifying. Every time you keep a small commitment, something quiet happens. Your mind stops negotiating. Your identity becomes clearer. Your actions begin to align. Discipline simplifies life. Nails and simplicity is where meaning can breathe. There is no meaningful life built on constant decision fatigue. There is no sense of purpose in endless reconsideration. Discipline reduces noise. It creates a rhythm your nervous system can trust. This is why people who live disciplined lives often appear calm. Not because their lives are easy, but because they are predictable in the right ways. They know what they will do tomorrow. They know what they will not negotiate. They know what matters enough to repeat. Purpose grows in that certainty. Not emotional certainty, behavioral certainty. This is the shift that changes everything. Stop asking yourself if you feel motivated enough to act. Start asking whether the action is non-negotiable. When discipline becomes non-negotiable, meaning stops being optional. You do not need many disciplines. You need one action you perform daily, regardless of mood. One behavior that anchors your day. One promise you refuse to break. That single point of consistency becomes the center of gravity for your life. Around it, other things begin to organize naturally. Energy follows commitment. Clarity follows action. Purpose follows discipline. This is why chasing motivation leads to exhaustion. Motivation asks too much from emotion. Discipline asks very little, only repetition. And repetition, over time, changes who you are. A disciplined life doesn't feel meaningful immediately. It feels controlled, sometimes constrained. But control is not the enemy of freedom. It is the foundation of it. When discipline is present, you no longer wake up wondering who you are supposed to be that day. You already know what you will do, and doing something consistently is how meaning slowly enters a life. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but permanently. Purpose doesn't reward intensity, it rewards reliability. Build discipline first. Meaning will follow, not because you searched for it, but because you created the conditions for it to exist. Chapter 3. Identity is built before purpose appears. There is a subtle trap that keeps many lives stuck. It sounds harmless at first, even reasonable. I'll commit once I know who I really am. I'll stay consistent once I feel aligned. I'll take action when this feels like the right path. But identity does not reveal itself before action. It forms because of it. Waiting to feel like a certain kind of person before acting like one reverses the order of growth. Identity is not discovered. It is reinforced. Every action you repeat sends a quiet message to your mind. This is who I am. And every action you avoid sends a message too. A man once struggled with a deep sense of uncertainty about himself. He didn't lack ideas. He didn't lack ambition. He lacked stability in how he showed up. Some weeks he worked intensely. Other weeks he disappeared into distraction. Some days he spoke confidently about his goals. Other days he doubted everything. When asked who he was trying to become, he couldn't answer. Not because the answer didn't exist, but because his actions contradicted each other. Identity cannot form in chaos. The mind needs consistency to decide who you are. Purpose depends on identity because purpose requires direction, and direction requires a stable sense of self. Without that stability, every new idea feels tempting. Every doubt feels convincing. Every obstacle feels like a sign to quit. This is why identity must be built deliberately. Not by affirmations, not by visualization, but by behavior. Think about how identity actually works. You don't believe you are reliable because you told yourself you are. You believe it because you kept showing up. You don't feel capable because you thought positive thoughts. You feel capable because you followed through repeatedly. Identity is memory. Specifically, memory of your own actions. Another story makes this clearer. A woman felt stuck between many possible paths. She described herself as in-between versions of who she might become. She read constantly, reflected deeply, analyzed every choice. But nothing settled. She decided to stop trying to define herself in words and start defining herself through behavior. She chose one sentence: I am someone who finishes what I start. Then she acted as if that sentence were already true. Not perfectly, not dramatically. She chose small projects and completed them. Emails answered fully, tasks closed instead of postponed, loose ends tied. And over time, something changed. She didn't feel inspired. She felt solid. Her sense of self stopped shifting with her mood. Decisions became easier. Doubt lost its authority, not because she found her purpose, but because she became someone she could rely on. Identity is not a label. It is a pattern. When patterns stabilize, direction becomes obvious. Purpose is attracted to identity because identity limits chaos. It narrows your options. A strong identity removes unnecessary questions. You no longer ask, should I show up today? You already know the answer. You no longer negotiate with your impulses. Your standards are clear. This is why identity must be built before purpose can be sustained. A person without a clear identity cannot hold a clear direction. Everything feels temporary. Everything feels uncertain. But once identity forms, purpose has something to attach itself to. This is the practical shift that matters. Stop asking what your purpose is. Start asking what kind of person you are reinforcing daily. Are your actions building someone disciplined, someone reliable, someone capable of finishing, or are they reinforcing inconsistency? Your identity is being shaped either way. Every skipped commitment teaches your mind something. Every followed-through action teaches it something else. Identity does not wait for permission. It forms automatically from repetition. This is why small actions matter so much. Not because they are impressive, but because they are believable. Your mind believes what you do repeatedly, not what you say occasionally. Once identity becomes stable, purpose no longer feels distant, because it feels like a natural extension. You don't search for meaning, you express it. Purpose becomes the direction your identity naturally moves toward. This is also why purpose collapses when identity is weak. Without a stable sense of self, any purpose feels fragile. One failure shakes it, one setback threatens it. But when identity is strong, purpose adapts instead of breaks. You adjust without losing yourself. This is the deeper reason discipline matters. Discipline is not just about productivity, it is about identity formation. Each disciplined action reinforces who you are. And once you know who you are, not intellectually but behaviorally, purpose stops being confusing. It becomes obvious, not exciting, not dramatic, obvious. You don't wake up asking what your life means. You wake up knowing how you live, and that is enough. Identity first, purpose follows, always. Chapter 4. The meaning of ordinary days. There is a quiet moment that defines whether a life becomes meaningful or not. It usually happens on an ordinary day. Nothing special is planned. No milestone is approaching. No one is watching. It is the moment you realize that today feels exactly like yesterday, and that realization can go in two very different directions. For some, it creates restlessness, a sense of being trapped in repetition, a feeling that life is passing without significance. For others, it becomes the foundation of something steady and deep. The difference is not talent, luck, or intelligence. It is how ordinary days are treated. A man once described his frustration with a single sentence. Nothing is wrong with my life, but nothing feels meaningful either. He wasn't failing. He wasn't struggling. That he was functioning. Each day looked reasonable on its own. Work done, responsibilities handled, even moments of comfort. But taken together, the days felt empty. He believed the problem was monotony, that life had become too repetitive. In reality, repetition was not the problem. Aimless repetition was. Ordinary days are not the enemy of meaning. They are where meaning is built, but only when repetition is intentional. Without intention, repetition becomes noise. With intention, it becomes structure. This is where many people go wrong. They assume that purpose must feel exciting, that meaning should feel noticeable. So when days feel dull, they conclude something is missing. But meaning does not announce itself with emotion. It accumulates silently. Think of how strength is built. Lifting a weight once does nothing. Lifting it consistently, even when it feels unimpressive, changes the body. Purpose works the same way. One ordinary day does not matter. 1,000 ordinary days lived with intention shape a life. Another story makes this clear. A woman kept a journal where she recorded how she felt each evening. On days with something new or exciting, she wrote enthusiastically. On ordinary days, her entries were short, sometimes empty. Over time, she noticed something unsettling. Her happiest days felt good in the moment, but they changed nothing. The days that quietly improved her life were almost invisible when they happened. They were days she exercised without motivation, days she worked steadily without inspiration, days she kept commitments no one else knew about. Those days didn't feel meaningful at the time, but they created stability. And when stability changed everything. Ordinary days are deceptive. They feel insignificant while they are happening, but they decide the direction of your life. If ordinary days are unstructured, life drifts. If ordinary days are intentional, life compounds. This is why waiting for special moments to feel purposeful is dangerous. Special moments are rare. Ordinary days are constant. purpose cannot depend on what happens occasionally. It must be built on what happens daily. The discomfort many people feel with routine is not boredom. It is resistance to commitment. Routine removes the illusion that progress comes from bursts of effort. It reveals the truth. Progress comes from staying with a task, staying with a discipline, staying with a standard. Ordinary days force honesty. Same, they ask a simple question: who are you when nothing pushes you? No deadlines, no urgency, no external pressure, just choice. Those choices, repeated quietly, shape meaning. This is also why ordinary days feel heavy at first. They strip away excitement, they remove novelty, and what remains is effort without applause. But that effort builds something far more valuable than excitement. It builds reliability. When you live intentionally on ordinary days, your nervous system learns safety. Your mind stops searching for escape. Your identity stabilizes. Life becomes calmer, not easier, but clearer. This clarity is often mistaken for boredom, but boredom is not emptiness. It is the absence of distraction. And distraction is often what hides the lack of meaning. When distraction fades, ordinary days become visible. And in that visibility, you get a choice. You can escape them, or you can invest in them. Investing in ordinary days means doing small things well, finishing tasks even when no one notices, keeping routines even when motivation is absent, honoring standards even when breaking them would be easier. These actions don't feel heroic. They feel mundane. But over time, they change how you experience life. You stop needing intensity to feel alive. You stop chasing novelty to feel purposeful. Meaning becomes something steady rather than dramatic. A life built on ordinary days does not feel constantly exciting. It feels grounded, and grounded lives last. This is the shift that matters. Stop asking whether today feels meaningful. Ask whether today is aligned. Alignment compounds. Emotion fluctuates. Purpose is not built on how days feel. It is built on how days are lived. If you treat ordinary days as obstacles, meaning stays distant. If you treat them as building blocks, meaning becomes inevitable. This is why the most purposeful lives often look simple from the outside. Their days repeat. Their routines are predictable. Their priorities are clear. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just consistency. And consistency over time turns ordinary days into a meaningful life. Not all at once, not loudly, but permanently. Chapter 5. Purpose emerges through contribution. There is a moment many people reach where self-reflection stops helping. They have analyzed their past. They understand their strengths and weaknesses. They know their patterns, and yet something still feels empty. The mistake is subtle but common. Too much focus turned inward. Reflection is useful, but only up to a point. After that, it becomes a loop. Purpose does not grow in endless self-observation. It grows when attention moves outward. A man once described his life as well-managed but hollow. He had optimized everything. His routines were efficient, his habits were disciplined, his goals were clear. But at the end of the day, something felt off. He was building a life that functioned, but didn't feel meaningful. The issue wasn't discipline, it wasn't structure, it was direction. Everything he did was centered around himself, his progress, his clarity, his fulfillment. Purpose cannot survive inside a closed loop. Meaning requires an exchange. Contribution breaks the loop. When effort moves beyond self-maintenance, life gains depth. Contribution does not need to be dramatic. It does not require recognition, and it does not have to be tied to a grand mission. It only requires usefulness. Another story makes this clear. A woman spent years searching for work that felt meaningful. She changed jobs repeatedly, each time hoping the next role would finally feel right. At some point, She stopped searching for the perfect position and focused on something simpler. She asked one question each morning: what would make today useful? Not impressive, not exciting. Useful. Sometimes it meant helping a colleague without being asked. Sometimes it meant finishing a task thoroughly instead of rushing through it. Sometimes it meant creating something small that didn't exist before. None of these actions changed her job title, but they changed her experience of life. She stopped feeling invisible, not because others noticed her, but because she knew she was contributing. Purpose grows when effort connects to something beyond personal comfort. This is why people often feel more alive when helping others, teaching, building, or creating. Not because they forget themselves, but because they transcend self-absorption. Self-focus narrows perspective. Contribution expands it. When life becomes only about how you feel, how motivated you are, or how aligned you seem, everything becomes fragile. Mood changes. Circumstances shift. Confidence wavers. But usefulness is stable. Even on difficult days, you can be useful. Even without motivation, you can contribute. Purpose attaches itself to that stability. This is why contribution often comes before clarity. You don't need to know your ultimate direction to be useful today. You only need to create value where you are. Contribution turns discipline into meaning. Without it, discipline becomes self-control without purpose. Another man learned this after burning out. He had spent years focused on personal growth, reading, planning, optimizing, but everything was inward. When progress slowed, frustration grew. Eventually, he shifted focus. He committed to one external responsibility: mentoring someone younger in his field. At first, it felt like an obligation, so something that took time away from his own plans. But over time, something unexpected happened. His own doubts quieted. His priorities sharpened. His sense of direction returned. Not because his life became easier, but because his effort mattered to someone else. Purpose emerges when your actions create impact beyond yourself. Even small impact counts. A completed task that helps someone else work better. A piece of knowledge shared. A problem solved that wasn't technically yours to solve. These moments accumulate, and they change how you experience effort. Work stops feeling like maintenance. It starts feeling like contribution. This is a crucial shift. Maintenance keeps life running. Contribution gives it meaning. A life built only on maintenance feels empty, no matter how efficient it becomes. Contribution introduces responsibility, and responsibility is deeply grounding. When something depends on you, even in a small way, your actions carry weight. That weight creates seriousness. Seriousness creates presence. Presence creates meaning. This is why purpose often strengthens during periods of service or responsibility. Not because they are easy, but because they pull attention outward. Contribution also removes the need for constant self-validation. You stop asking, "Do I feel purposeful today?" and start asking, "Did I create value?" Value is measurable. Feeling is not. This shift stabilizes your inner life. Purpose becomes something you live, not something you evaluate. There is another layer to contribution that matters. Contribution creates continuity. When your actions serve something larger than your immediate comfort, effort begins to stack. You are no longer starting from zero each day. You are continuing something. That continuity is essential. Purpose is sustained movement in one direction. Contribution gives movement a reason to continue. This is also why contribution often clarifies identity. You learn who you are through what you offer. Are you someone who solves problems, supports others, builds systems, creates clarity? These traits reveal themselves through contribution, not introspection. Purpose becomes clearer through doing. Not all contribution looks noble. Sometimes it is quiet, sometimes inconvenient, sometimes unnoticed, but it matters. The difference between a life that feels meaningful and one that feels empty is often not freedom or success. It is usefulness. A useful life has weight, and weight gives life gravity. Gravity pulls actions into alignment. This is why contribution must be intentional. If you wait to feel purposeful before contributing, you will wait forever. Contribution comes first. Purpose follows. Start small. Choose one way your effort can make something better outside yourself. Do it consistently, without needing praise, without needing certainty. Over time, something shifts. You stop feeling like you are drifting through your own life. You are participating in it. Purpose does not appear as an idea. It appears as a consequence of showing up, of taking responsibility, of creating value. Contribution is not the end of the journey, but it is the moment purpose stops being theoretical. It becomes lived. And once purpose is lived, it no longer feels distant, it feels earned. Trong tam ro, self-trust muiten confidence muiten purpose, kong triet libai bong, kong lapkau truk ku. Chapter 6. Self-trust is the foundation of purpose. Purpose cannot survive without trust. Not trust in the world, not trust in circumstances. Trust in yourself. When self-trust is weak, everything else becomes unstable. Decisions feel heavy, commitments feel risky, plans feel temporary. A life without self-trust is a life filled with hesitation, not because the person lacks ability, but because they no longer believe their actions will last. Self-trust is not confidence in outcomes, it is confidence in follow-through. A man once described himself as capable but unreliable. He could start almost anything, projects, habits, plans. But finishing was rare. Each time he failed to follow through, something small broke inside. Not dramatically, quietly. Over time, he stopped trusting his own intentions. He still made plans, but he no longer believed them. This is how self-doubt actually forms. Not from failure itself, but from repeated inconsistency. Every broken promise to yourself teaches your mind a lesson. You don't mean what you say. You won't last. Don't get your hopes up. Eventually, your mind stops offering effort freely. Why invest energy if it won't be honored? Purpose cannot exist in that environment. Purpose requires commitment. Commitment requires trust. Trust requires consistency. This is why self-trust must come before confidence. Confidence is often misunderstood. It is not feeling bold. It is not feeling certain. It is not believing you will succeed. Confidence is believing you will show up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, even when it doesn't feel rewarding. Another story illustrates this clearly. And a woman struggled deeply with self-doubt, despite outward success. From the outside, she appeared disciplined. She worked hard. She achieved results. But internally, she felt fragile. Any disruption shook her confidence. Any setback felt personal. The issue was not her ability. It was her relationship with herself. She had learned to perform when pressure was high, but she had never learned to trust herself when pressure was absent. Her discipline depended on urgency. When urgency disappeared, so did consistency. This made her feel unpredictable to herself. So she changed one thing. She created a small daily commitment with no external consequences. No deadlines, no rewards, no punishment, just a promise. Every evening she wrote one sentence reflecting on the day, no matter how tired she was, no matter how she felt. Some days the sentence was thoughtful, other days it was blunt and minimal, but she never skipped it. At first, it felt meaningless, but after a few weeks, something shifted. She began to trust herself again, not because the habit was impressive, but because it was kept. That trust spilled into other areas of her life. Decisions became easier. Doubt lost intensity, confidence stabilized, self-trust compounds, just like discipline, just like purpose. This is the part that matters most. Self-trust is not built through big wins. It is built through small, kept promises. Every time you do what you said you would do, your mind relaxes. It stops monitoring you. It stops questioning your intentions. Energy returns. This is why inconsistency is so draining. Your mind never rests. It is always waiting for disappointment. And a person without self-trust is constantly negotiating with themselves. Maybe later. Just this once. I'll make up for it tomorrow. These negotiations erode clarity. Purpose cannot survive endless negotiation. Purpose requires alignment between intention and behavior. Self-trust is that alignment repeated. When self-trust is strong, something important changes. You no longer need to motivate yourself aggressively. You no longer need to argue with your impulses. You already know how you behave. This creates calm. Calm creates focus. Focus creates direction. Direction creates purpose. This is why many people feel anxious when trying to live meaningfully. They're trying to build purpose on top of broken self-trust. They want direction without reliability, confidence without consistency. It doesn't work. You cannot build a meaningful life on promises you don't keep. This is also why purpose often collapses during stress. Stress exposes self-trust. If your self-trust is conditional, pressure breaks it. If it is built on consistency, pressure strengthens it. A person who trusts themselves does not panic under uncertainty. They adjust because they know one thing will remain true. They will show up. Self-trust turns setbacks into feedback instead of threats. You don't lose yourself when plans change. You adapt without collapsing. This stability is essential for purpose. Purpose is not rigid, but it requires a stable center. Self-trust is that center. Here is the practical shift that changes everything. Stop making promises you cannot keep. Not because ambition is bad, but because broken promises cost too much. Make fewer commitments, smaller ones, clear ones, then keep them. Every kept promise strengthens your foundation. It doesn't matter how small it seems. 5 minutes of focused work. 1 finished task. 1 habit performed despite resistance. These actions rebuild trust faster than any affirmation ever could. Your mind believes behavior, not intention. This is why identity stabilizes when self-trust grows. You no longer wonder who you are. You see it daily. Purpose stops feeling fragile when self-trust is strong. You don't fear losing direction because direction is not tied to mood. It is tied to behavior. This is also why calm often accompanies purposeful lives. Not excitement. Calm. Calm comes from knowing you will not abandon yourself. That knowledge is grounding. When you trust yourself, you stop searching for reassurance. You stop waiting for permission. You stop doubting every step. Purpose no longer feels like pressure. It feels like movement, not rushed, not forced, steady. Self-trust is not built overnight, but it is built daily. Every time you honor your word, especially when no one else knows, you strengthen the core of your life. Purpose rests on that core. Without it, purpose collapses under pressure. With it, purpose endures. Before asking what your life should be about, ask something simpler. Do you trust yourself to keep going? If the answer is uncertain, start there. Because purpose does not require certainty about the future. It requires reliability in the present. And reliability begins with self-trust. Chapter 7. Living with Purpose. Before you feel it. One of the quiet reasons people stay stuck is not lack of effort, it is timing. They wait for the feeling first, the feeling of readiness, the feeling of confidence, the feeling that this finally makes sense. They believe purpose should feel clear before it is lived, but clarity does not come first. Movement does. A life does not become meaningful because it feels meaningful. It becomes meaningful because it is lived with intention long before the feeling arrives. This misunderstanding creates hesitation. People postpone action not because they are incapable, but because they believe something inside must change first. And they tell themselves, "I'll start once I feel more certain. I'll commit once I feel aligned. I'll live differently once this feels right." But purpose is not a feeling you wait for. It is a behavior you practice. A man once described how he felt like an observer in his own life. He had ideas, he had plans, he had values he admired, but none of them felt real. Everything stayed hypothetical. He didn't live badly, he just lived cautiously. Every decision required emotional confirmation. Every commitment required enthusiasm. When the feeling wasn't there, he waited. And waiting slowly turned into drifting. What he didn't realize was that waiting for the right feeling was preventing the feeling from ever forming. Purpose is not emotional clarity. It is directional consistency. And the feeling of meaning comes after repeated alignment, not before it. Another story makes this clearer. A woman wanted her life to feel purposeful. She read about meaning, she listened to talks, she reflected deeply, she understood the ideas intellectually. But nothing changed in her day-to-day behavior. Eventually, she stopped trying to feel purposeful and focused on acting purposeful. Not in grand ways, in quiet ones. She structured her mornings, she limited distractions, she committed to finishing what she started. At first, it felt artificial. She didn't feel inspired. She didn't feel different, but she continued. After a month, something subtle happened. She stopped questioning herself as much. Her decisions required less debate. Her days felt heavier, not emotionally, but in significance. The feeling of purpose followed the behavior. This is how it works. Emotion responds to consistency. You cannot feel purposeful in a life that lacks direction. But direction does not require feeling. It requires action. This is where many people get confused. They assume acting without feeling aligned is dishonest, as if they are pretending to be someone they are not. In reality, they are practicing becoming someone they want to be. Identity forms through behavior, not emotion. Living with purpose before you feel it is not pretending. It is training. Training your attention, training your discipline, training your standards. The feeling catches up later. This is why people who live purposeful lives often say they didn't feel confident at the beginning. They acted anyway. They didn't wait for certainty. They committed to direction. Waiting for certainty keeps you safe. But safety does not build meaning. Meaning requires risk, not reckless risk, but the risk of commitment. Commitment removes the option to drift. When you commit to a way of living, you no longer ask yourself every day who you are supposed to be. You already decided. This decision creates relief. Relief comes not from answers, but from direction. A person without direction is constantly evaluating themselves. Is this right? Does this feel like me? Should I be doing something else? A person with direction simply moves. Not because they are sure, but because they are committed. Purpose stabilizes when evaluation stops, and evaluation stops when action becomes consistent. This is why purpose often feels heavy at first. It removes ambiguity. Ambiguity feels comfortable because it keeps all options open, but open options prevent depth. Depth requires narrowing. Living with purpose means narrowing your life intentionally, not forever, but long enough for something meaningful to form. This narrowing often feels restrictive at first. Less novelty, less flexibility, more repetition. But repetition creates identity. Identity creates direction. Direction creates meaning. This is also why many people quit too early. They act purposefully for a short time, then stop because they don't feel it. But feeling is delayed. The nervous system needs time to adapt. The mind needs evidence. Purpose does not reward impatience. It rewards continuity. Another man experienced this during a period of personal rebuilding. He decided to live as if his life mattered, even when he didn't feel it. He woke up at the same time each day. He worked with focus. He avoided distractions. He honored small commitments. For weeks, nothing changed emotionally. But he kept going. Eventually, he noticed something important. He stopped feeling lost, not because he found answers, but because he was no longer drifting. Drifting creates anxiety. Direction creates calm. Purpose does not eliminate difficulty. It eliminates confusion. Confusion drains energy. When confusion fades, energy returns. This energy does not feel like excitement. It feels like steadiness. This is the energy of a purposeful life. Not high, not low, stable. Living with purpose before you feel it also builds resilience. When purpose depends on feeling, it collapses under stress. When purpose depends on behavior, it adapts. You can lose motivation and still continue. So you can feel uncertain and still act. You can struggle and still move forward. This is strength. Strength is not confidence. It is continuity under discomfort. Purpose requires this strength. Not dramatic strength, quiet strength. The strength to continue when nothing feels special. This is the discipline of meaning, and it cannot be learned by waiting. It must be practiced. Here is the practical shift that defines this chapter. Stop asking how you feel about your life. Start acting in ways that would make a life meaningful. Structure your days. Honor commitments. Contribute value. Limit distraction. Do these things even when they feel empty, especially when they feel empty. Because emptiness is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that something new is forming. Feelings catch up to patterns. Purpose catches up to behavior. And you do not need to feel purposeful to live purposefully. You need to live purposefully long enough for the feeling to arrive. This is how meaning is built, not through emotional certainty, but through disciplined action. Before purpose feels real, it must be lived. And once it is lived consistently, it no longer feels forced. It feels natural, earned. Chapter 8. Purpose is a long game, not a breakthrough. One of the most damaging ideas about purpose is the belief that it arrives all at once. As a breakthrough, as a realization, as a single moment where everything finally makes sense. This belief creates urgency, and urgency creates disappointment. When purpose is expected to arrive suddenly, ordinary progress feels like failure. Slow growth feels like being behind. Quiet consistency feels like stagnation. But purpose is not built for speed. It is built for endurance. A life that is meant to last cannot be rushed into meaning. Purpose is not a moment. It is a trajectory. A man once believed his life was running out of time. He felt pressure to figure everything out before it was too late. Every year that passed without clarity felt like wasted time. So he rushed, and he changed directions frequently. Abandoned paths too early. Quit when results were not immediate. Each restart felt hopeful. Each disappointment felt heavier than the last. What he did not see was that the problem was not lack of opportunity. It was impatience. Purpose cannot form in a life that is constantly resetting. Depth requires staying. Another story shows this more clearly. A woman committed to a single craft for years without recognition. No milestones, no praise, no visible payoff. Many times, she questioned whether it was worth continuing. Nothing dramatic happened that told her she was on the right path, but she stayed. Years later, people described her as someone with a strong sense of purpose, not because she had found something extraordinary, but because she had remained faithful to something ordinary long enough for it to mature. Purpose is revealed in hindsight, not foresight. It becomes clear after time has passed, not before it begins. This is why patience is not optional. Without patience, every difficulty feels like a sign to quit. With patience, difficulty becomes part of the process. Purpose requires a long view. A long view changes how effort feels. You stop asking whether today proves anything. You stop measuring progress emotionally. Instead, you ask one quieter question: am I still moving in the same direction? That question matters more than motivation. Purpose does not ask you to feel certain about the future. It asks you to remain consistent in the present. As this is why impatience often masquerades as ambition. Ambition wants results. Purpose wants alignment. Ambition asks, how fast can I get there? Purpose asks, can I sustain this way of living? If the answer is no, the path is wrong, no matter how exciting it looks. Purpose favors what can be repeated for years, not what impresses for weeks. This changes how you choose commitments. Instead of asking whether something excites you, you ask whether it is livable. Instead of asking whether something pays off quickly, you ask whether it compounds. A purposeful life is built on compounding behaviors. Small actions, repeated daily, over long periods of time. This is uncomfortable in a culture obsessed with immediacy. But immediacy creates shallow lives. Depth comes from staying. There is another reason patience matters so much. Purpose changes shape over time. What feels meaningful now will not always feel the same later. And that is not failure. It is growth. A person who demands a fixed definition of purpose often feels lost when life changes. But a person who commits to a way of living can adapt without losing direction. Purpose is not a destination. It is a relationship with time. It deepens as you deepen. This is why long-term thinking stabilizes identity. You stop panicking when results are slow. You stop questioning everything when progress is invisible. You understand that today is one small link in a long chain, and that understanding creates calm. Calm allows consistency. Consistency allows growth. Growth reveals purpose. Another man learned this after years of frustration, that he believed he had wasted his life because he hadn't found his true calling. Looking back, all he saw were detours. But when he examined those years more carefully, he noticed something else. Skills had accumulated. Character had formed. Discipline had been practiced. Nothing was wasted. Purpose was forming beneath the surface. It simply hadn't announced itself yet. This is a critical realization. Purpose does not explain itself while it is being built. You understand it later. This is why comparison is so dangerous. When you compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10, impatience grows. You feel behind when you are simply early. Purpose unfolds at different speeds for different lives. Trying to rush it only delays it. A long view allows you to stay focused on what matters now. Not the entire journey, not the final outcome. Just the next right action. Purpose is maintained through this simplicity. One day at a time, one commitment at a time. One season lived fully before moving to the next. This mindset removes pressure. You no longer feel the need to justify your life constantly. You no longer demand meaning from every moment. You allow meaning to emerge naturally. This is maturity. Mature purpose does not seek validation. It seeks continuity. It does not ask, is this impressive? It asks, is this honest? Honesty sustains meaning far longer than excitement ever could. When purpose is approached as a long game, setbacks lose their power. Failure becomes information. Pauses become recalibration. Doubt becomes part of the rhythm. Nothing feels final. This flexibility is essential. A rigid idea of purpose breaks under reality. A flexible one grows stronger. The long game also teaches humility. You accept that you cannot see everything yet, that some clarity only comes with time. And that is not a weakness. It is how life works. Purpose is not something you conquer. It is something you cooperate with. Over years, through effort, through patience. Here is the final shift this chapter offers. Stop asking when your purpose will arrive. Start asking whether you are building something you can live with long term. If the answer is yes, you are already on the path. Even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Purpose does not rush. It does not shout. It does not compete. It grows quietly alongside you. And one day, often without warning, you look back and realize, meaning has been there for a long time. It was forming while you were simply living. There is a quiet maturity that comes with accepting that purpose is never finished, not completed, not solved, not fully understood. A purposeful life is not a straight line toward clarity. It is a long relationship with uncertainty. And learning to live well inside that uncertainty is part of the work. Many people assume that once purpose appears, doubt disappears. That once direction is found, inner conflict ends. But that is not how it works. Doubt does not vanish in a purposeful life. It becomes less threatening. It no longer signals that something is wrong. It simply signals growth. When purpose is treated as a long game, doubt loses its urgency. You no longer feel pressured to resolve every question immediately. You allow some things to remain unanswered. This patience changes how you experience life, and you stop rushing to define yourself. You stop forcing conclusions. You stop needing everything to make sense right now. Purpose deepens when urgency fades. Another person learned this after years of chasing clarity. He believed that if he could just define his purpose clearly enough, life would finally feel stable. But each definition felt temporary. What he eventually realized was this: purpose was not asking to be defined. It was asking to be lived. The more he tried to explain his direction, the more fragile it felt. The more he focused on living his values consistently, the less explanation he needed. This is an important distinction. A life with purpose does not need constant articulation. It needs continuity. Meaning does not demand to be explained. It reveals itself through endurance. And this is why purposeful lives often look simple on the surface. Not because they lack depth, but because depth has replaced noise. When you accept purpose as a long game, comparison loses its grip. You no longer measure your life against someone else's timeline. You understand that development happens in phases. Some seasons are about building. Some are about maintaining. Some are about letting go. Each phase has value. Trying to force one phase to look like another creates frustration. Purpose respects timing. It unfolds when conditions are right, not when impatience demands it. This mindset also changes how you experience setbacks. Failure no longer feels like a verdict. It feels like information. You don't question your entire direction because of one difficult season. You adjust without abandoning yourself. This is emotional resilience, and resilience is one of the quiet markers of a purposeful life. People with purpose are not unshaken. They are unpanicked. They know setbacks are part of the process, not signs to escape it. When purpose is treated as a long game, pressure decreases. You no longer demand that every year justify your existence. You allow years to play different roles. Some years lay foundations. Some test endurance. Some offer reward. None are wasted. Purpose does not ask for constant progress. It asks for continued participation. This perspective creates a calm seriousness. You take your life seriously, but not desperately. You commit without clinging. You work without rushing. This balance is rare, but powerful. It is what allows purpose to last. A short-term view burns out. A long-term view matures. Purpose matures alongside you. And as it matures, it becomes less about identity and more about responsibility. Less about what you want, more about what you are willing to carry. This shift marks the transition from searching for meaning to living it. By the time purpose is clear, it no longer needs to be chased. It is already embedded in how you move through the world. That is the quiet truth of the long game. Purpose does not arrive to announce itself. It stays. And one day, you realize you have been living it all along. Purpose does not arrive with certainty. It arrives with familiarity. Familiarity with effort, with commitment, with the quiet discipline of showing up again and again. If there is one truth that runs through everything you have heard, it is this: a meaningful life is not discovered. It is constructed, not through intensity, not through inspiration, but through repetition. You do not wake up one day and suddenly know who you are meant to be. You become that person gradually, through the choices you repeat when no one is watching. Purpose is not built in moments of excitement. It is built in moments of neutrality, in ordinary days, in decisions that feel small but consistent. Throughout this audiobook, you have seen the same pattern from different angles. Structure comes before clarity. Discipline comes before meaning. Identity forms through behavior. Contribution turns effort into significance. Self-trust stabilizes direction. Action leads emotion. And patience allows purpose to mature. None of these ideas are dramatic. That is why they work. A dramatic idea fades quickly. A lived principle stays. Purpose does not demand perfection from you. It demands participation. It does not require you to feel certain. It requires you to remain consistent. You will still have doubts. You will still have slow days. You will still question yourself at times. That does not mean you are off track. It means you are human. A purposeful life is not one without uncertainty. It is one that continues despite it. As you move forward, resist the urge to wait for a signal. There is no final confirmation, no moment when everything clicks forever. Instead, there is a quieter assurance that grows over time. The assurance that you are living in alignment with your values, that your days have direction, that your effort is not wasted. This assurance does not come from thinking. It comes from doing, from keeping promises to yourself, from contributing beyond your comfort, from choosing the long game when shortcuts tempt you. Purpose does not reward urgency. It rewards endurance. If you take anything from this journey, let it be this: you do not need to feel purposeful to live purposefully. You only need to live deliberately, long enough for meaning to take shape. Start small, start today. Start with what you can control. One habit, one commitment, one action that reflects who you want to become. Then repeat it tomorrow. Repeat it again, not because it feels inspiring, but because it matters. Over time, those repetitions will form something solid beneath your life. And one day, without realizing when it happened, you will look back and notice something has changed. You are no longer searching. You are no longer drifting. You are moving. Purpose will not feel like an answer. It will feel like stability. It will feel like weight, like gravity, like a quiet confidence that does not need explanation. That is when you know you are building something real. And that is enough. Thank you for taking the time to listen, to reflect, and to stay with this process. If this message resonated with you, carry it forward. Live it, practice it, build on it, and remember, Purpose is not found overnight. It is built daily, one day at a time,